here and says something about we're all true blue Tar Heels. I did detect a little twitch. It is something also that I'm trying to represent tonight. I told Bobby Crimmins when I heard he was the speaker that I wore my yellow tie for Bobby. My hair is getting to look like Bobby's, and that had nothing to do with that. But it is a great night, and we're here to honor sportsmanship, and we're here to honor three people who actually stood for that every single day of their lives. To me, I would also like to say that Coach Bill Guthridge, who was my freshman coach 100 years ago, would love to have been here tonight. His family had a trip planned, and Coach Guthridge could not be here. It's a great thing to look out there and see Woody Durham after 40 years of those broadcasts. Mike and I were sitting there when they were playing the last moments of the Duke Championship games, the North Carolina State Championship games, the North Carolina Championship games, and those thrills. Every time I hear that about throwing away to Worthy. I happened to be an assistant coach that night, and it was a marvelous, marvelous feeling. And I remember hugging Coach Smith, and that was the best feeling I'd ever had. I remember those kinds of things that people should stand for, and I'm like Charles Scott. Coach Smith always called him Charles. Everyone else called him Charlie. But Coach Smith taught me one thing at that moment, because he said, somebody asked the question, why do you call him Charles? And he said, because that's the name, if I can remember right. That's the name that his parents gave him, so I should honor them. Every player I've ever recruited and talked to, I want to know, what do you want to be called? It's just another way, what Charlie said, I'm not going to be up here talking about Coach Smith's wins, about Coach Smith's numbers, because he was so much more than that. I look around and hear people say things, and I watch basketball and I see so many things on every level of basketball that people took from Coach Smith. That imitation is the most sincere form of flattery. I see that in every area of basketball, in every country in the world, do things that Coach Smith brought. I'm not an innovator, I'm a copier. And I copy almost everything the man ever did. And I feel like that's the smartest thing that I could ever do. I look up here on the stage and some of the people in front. There are some great players here that can make all of us very good coaches. And Coach Smith would be the first one to point at those players. We have some fantastic coaches that I've loved getting to know, men's coaches, women's coaches, that I think just do a phenomenal job. And I think everyone has copied something that they got from Coach Smith. My father-in-law was a North Carolina State graduate. All three daughters went to North Carolina. I told my father-in-law the second generation just got a lot smarter. I came to North Carolina because my high school basketball coach, Buddy Baldwin, played on the freshman team for a while for Coach Smith. And he thought Coach Smith was the most amazing person he had ever met. And because of Coach Buddy Baldwin, I came to North Carolina. The reason I say Coach Baldwin only played a while for Coach Smith is from the western part of the state to Chapel Hill was a great move. But Buddy enjoyed North Carolina. And he had a bad problem because he concentrated so well on one subject, because about 3 weeks before final exams he had 4 F's and a D. So he decided that he had better quit and stay in school where he wouldn't be able to go back. His mom and dad would take care of him. And he told me to this day that's the biggest mistake he ever made, because he could have done that and still continued to play for Coach Smith. Everybody up here that played for Coach Smith, that came into contact with Coach Smith, benefited from it greatly. Coach Smith was a much deeper thinker than Roy Williams. Hubie Brown one time said the dogs may bark depart, but the caravan rolls on. Coach Smith had something similar, but he did it much deeper than Hubie also. I think I may mispronounce this philosopher's name, Kierkegaard, said that life can be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards. Both of those, and I interpret that you have to move on. Regardless of what adversity you have to move on. But I think the one person that I cannot do that with is Coach Dean Smith. Because I have to remember everything that he gave me. I have to remember everything that he gave these players up here. I have to remember everything that he gave. I can barely see, but some of his children sitting down here. So life can be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards. But I can't do that about Coach Dean Smith. The Naismith Family Foundation and the North Carolina Hall of Fame, I thank you for having this kind of award, because sportsmanship, again, as I said earlier, when you think of that, you do think of Kay Yao, whom I dearly love. I remember when she did come to Lawrence, Kansas. I remember the coaches' trips where we used to draw diagrams on the napkins. I know that Mike Krzyzewski and what he has done in his career is just off the charts. And there'll never be a day that anyone will ever say that Roy Williams didn't have complete and total respect for what Mike Krzyzewski has done. And I love the fact that I can even be here to honor those two people. But it's also, I'm very humbled, and I hope that the former players up here will be okay if I say this on their behalf, on all of our behalf, for being able to be in contact with Coach Smith and what he has meant to our lives. And I would just say one thing. Kay Yao, Mike Krzyzewski, off the charts. But I didn't have that relationship with them. But I can say, representing North Carolina basketball and his family, Coach Smith, I love you.